He is born in the stifling heat of a lowland village, Tinoco, state of Cojedes. On November 2, 1961, a name falls onto the dust like a challenge. Clíver Alcalá Cordones. The child breathes the smell of corn, of animals, of warm earth. Around him, Venezuela seems distant, immense, split between mountains, forests, and feverish cities. He does not yet know that his existence will be woven through the hidden corridors of the army, then into the deeper shadows of foreign services. He grows up. The country stirs. Rumors of coups, guerrillas, oil, and poverty travel through the radio sets. He chooses the iron path of the uniform. He enters the Venezuelan army as one enters a temple, with a still naive but burning faith. The years go by. Boots slam. Instructors' voices tear the air. Discipline smooths out the edges of a stubborn character. Clíver moves forward. He climbs the ranks as others scale cliffs. Unit after unit, post after post. Open war does not come, but tension is everywhere. At the borders, in the barracks, in the streets of Caracas. Promotions fall. One day, his rank weighs heavily on his shoulders. Major General. Mayor General de la Fuerza Armada Nacional Bolivariana, the FANB, the armed backbone of Venezuela. The rebellious lieutenant colonel turned president speaks of revolution, of Bolivar, of justice for the poor. In this political cyclone, Clíver stands very close to the center. The proximity is displayed openly. He shakes the comandante's hand, listens to his fiery speeches, repeats his words before his troops. He becomes one of the men of the Chavista military apparatus, where barracks and palace fuse together. The 2000s open like an era of promises and fractures. Clíver receives key commands. He is entrusted with the 4th Armored Division, a force of metal and fire. Then the Maracay garrison in Aragua. Tanks rumble. Armored vehicles parade. Soldiers salute him. In the staff rooms, maps are spread out. Regions are carved up. Another acronym is spoken, broader, more strategic. RADI. Región Estratégica de Defensa Integral. Guayana. A vast region, rich in rivers and minerals. There, Clíver commands, carries weight, embodies armed Bolivarian authority. For the country, he is the image of the soldier loyal to the revolution. For the cameras, he defends the Bolivarian revolution without nuance. Microphones are thrust toward him. He speaks of Bolivar's legacy, of sovereignty, of a people in arms. Chavista faith flows through his public statements. But beneath the surface, Venezuela is changing. Time passes. Chávez grows old, falls ill. On March 5, 2013, the news hits like a thunderclap that does not fade. Hugo Chávez is dead. The country freezes. Crowds weep. Officers look at one another. Ambitions awaken, silent, icy. Another man then steps forward to seize the scepter. Nicolás Maduro. On April 14, 2013, he is elected president. The Chavista revolution enters a second phase, harder, more closed. The armed forces become the backbone of a power that clings on, that protects itself, that seeks a new balance. The FANB spreads into the civilian sphere. Uniforms flood ministries, public companies, governorships. Officers in fatigues, in suits, in ties. NGOs, researchers, observers note the phenomenon. Military Venezuela is no longer content with barracks. It settles at the heart of the economy, of daily management, even of the trade in food. the structures harden. The Comando Estratégico Operacional, the CEOFANB, imposes itself as the brain of the armed machine. The RADI, whose inner workings Clíver knows intimately, assert themselves as the territorial arms of power. Strategic maps light up with zones, lines, corridors. But another, darker light appears at the edges of this rise in power. In Washington, in the hushed offices of the DEA and the U.S. Treasury, files pile up. The names of Venezuelan officials are entered on sanctions lists, in intelligence reports. OFAC freezes assets. The DEA investigates. The first accusations of drug trafficking, massive corruption, ambiguous ties with Colombian armed groups fall upon the Chavista circle. A new, heavy word takes shape in the press, in certain U.S. judicial actions. Cartel de los Soles. The cartel of the suns. The soles, those little suns that adorn the epaulets of Venezuelan generals, become a suspicious symbol. They no longer designate only a rank, but, it is claimed, a dark brotherhood. Senior officers, supposedly involved in cocaine trafficking, taking advantage of their power to move drugs across a porous Venezuela, riddled with clandestine roads and clandestine airstrips. Clíver, for his part, remains in those years a general of the system, a trusted man of the revolution. His name is already circulating in certain articles, linked to military networks, smuggling zones. But nothing has yet been officially engraved by the U.S. justice system. The time of judicial shock has not yet come. With Nicolás Maduro, the relationship cracks. In the corridors, people murmur that some generals cannot stand the new style, nor the way power tightens around a few figures. The 2013-2014 seasons go by. Clíver finds himself pushed toward the exit. Retirement. His commands evaporate. His access is reduced. The military hierarchy, over which he once ruled, closes without him. The Major General feels the door slam. He is no longer at the center. He slips toward the margins. Power strips him of his commands, excludes him from the inner circle, locks him into the status of an embarrassing veteran. This retirement, noted by the press, marks the official end of his military career. The end of the uniform. But not the end of his fight. Starting in 2015, his voice crosses digital and media borders. He gives interviews. El Nacional, NTN 24, Colombian media, others as well. He tells another story, that of a Chavista who remains faithful to Chávez, but who accuses Maduro of betraying the original ideal. He speaks of authoritarian drift, of corruption, of rot at the top. He accuses the Miraflores Palace of sinking into the temptations of drug trafficking, of getting into bed with the FARC, of drifting away from the people. The former general becomes a critical Chavista, an ambiguous figure, close enough to the original myth to speak with authority, far enough from the current power to become a danger. In studios and newspapers, he describes a regime devoured by cocaine bricks, suitcases of cash, invisible shipments crossing the country. The routes lead west, toward Colombia. Barranquilla, Caribbean coast, muggy heat, salty winds. There, in that city, Clíver settles. Not in complete clandestinity. He lives with relative visibility. Colombian and Venezuelan reports describe him as a known resident. He repeats that he is there with the knowledge of the Colombian authorities, with no arrest warrant threatening him. Caracas curses him, but Bogotá does not arrest him. Not yet. In exile, he becomes a magnet for the discontented in uniform. Dissident Venezuelan soldiers, exiled opponents, figures who dream of an armed uprising against Maduro, seek him out. They come with proposals, plans, illusions of reconquest. They want to overthrow the president who, in their view, has hijacked the revolution. The DEA, accustomed to tracking cocaine routes in Latin America, continues its investigations. It works, as often, with the DOJ, intelligence services, agencies that weave a global network. They monitor flows, planes, boats, offshore accounts. Federal districts light up like beacons in the judicial night. Southern District of New York, Southern District of Florida. Federal prosecutors there build cases against Venezuelan officials, civilian and military, allegedly linked to drug trafficking. The words narco-terrorism and conspiracy to import cocaine make their way into indictments. In these documents, the Colombian FARC appear as shadow partners. There is talk of secret alliances between guerrillas and Venezuelan officials. The shipments would leave the jungles, cross Venezuela, spread out toward the Caribbean, reach the shores of the United States. The U.S. justice system draws a diagram in which Chavista power becomes part of a vast criminal network. In this setup, before 2020, Clíver's name is already circulating in media investigations into the Cartel de los Soles. Articles, investigative columns cite him. He is placed among the senior officers under suspicion. But in the major official DOJ announcements against Maduro, his name does not yet appear in blazing letters. The public indictment targeting him directly has not yet been brandished. In Washington, as in Bogotá, the notion of an informant is familiar. In the halls of the DEA, the expression confidential source is part of everyday vocabulary. Repentant traffickers, fragile intermediaries, double-faced actors work with U.S. agents in exchange for protection, reduced sentences. The U.S. judicial system knows 1,000 shades of collaboration. Cooperating defendant, plea agreement, cooperating witness. Each term designates a tacit pact between crime and the law. Around Clíver's name, the murmurs grow thicker. Articles in both Spanish and English suggest that the former general has talked, that he has given up at least part of what he knows to U.S. agencies, maybe the DEA, maybe others. Meetings in Colombia are mentioned, appointments in hotels, discreet offices. Nothing is officially confirmed. No judicial document comes to set any of this in stone. But the suspicion lingers, stubbornly. In Caracas, Nicolás Maduro's government holds a convenient propaganda weapon. Clíver, already branded a traitor for his statements, becomes the ideal figure of the conspirator sold out to foreigners. When, later, weapons are discovered in Colombia, his name will become the official symbol of the permanent plot. He will be the example of the soldier who betrays the homeland, of the general who has gone over to the enemy, an instrument of a destabilization war orchestrated from Colombia and the United States. Within the opposition, Clíver's figure complicates strategies. Some see in him a military asset, a man who knows the heart of the FANB, capable of rallying units, of leading an uprising. Others are wary. They accuse him of being compromised, of bearing the taint of corruption, of drug trafficking. His ties with people close to Juan Guaidó, around plans for an armed insurrection, become a source of internal tensions. Should one ally with a controversial general to overthrow Maduro at the risk of tainting the cause? Or should one keep him at a distance, at the risk of losing a potentially decisive tool? For the United States, the figure of Clíver carries a dual dimension. On one hand, He is a name among others in the vast judicial campaign targeting Venezuelan officials linked to drug trafficking. On the other, he is a possible conduit of information, a corridor into the secrets of the FANB, the regime's relations with the FARC, the cocaine circuits. Washington seeks maximum pressure, sanctions, indictments, support for the opposition, and, in the background, exploitation of sources inside the regime. How far has Clíver Alcalá Cordones, child of Tinoco turned Major General, gone in this double game? Where does the loyal soldier end? Where does the conspirator begin? Where does the informant hide? In the shadows of interrogation rooms, in the secrecy of diplomatic cables, an answer may already exist. But in the light, before history, the story stops here, hanging on the edge of the abyss, where military destinies, geopolitical calculations, and the silent pacts of agencies meet to seal the fate of one man. And, through him, that of a country in freefall, delivered to the contrary winds of revolution, drug trafficking, and foreign justice.